Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump has a knack of staying in the headlines, sometimes for what he does and mostly for what he says. Today, as he woke up and saw his self-declared ceasefire between Iran and Israel in complete tatters, as you can expect, he wasn't very happy. So he, for his NATO trip, went straight to the waiting cameras and dropped the F-bomb on Iran and Israel. It was a 4-minute plus tirade, and trust me, it's definitely worth your time.
I don't think so, but I'm not happy that Israel's going out now. There was one rocket that I guess was fired overboard. It was after the time limit, and it missed its target. And now Israel's going out. These guys got to calm down. Ridiculous. I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. But in all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot. And now I hear Israel just went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either. And all I do is play both sides. I'm going now, as you know, to NATO. Some of you are going with me, and I think it's going to be successful. We'll see. I'll let you know. You're asking me about women in the Middle East. It's getting a lot better. Things are happening at a high level. As you know, Saudi Arabia's done a really good job. It's coming out far faster than I thought. So we're very happy about what's happening with women in the Middle East. Well, we have to have Israel calm down because they went on a mission this morning. I got to get Israel to calm down now. I think they both violated it. I don't think I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it. I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And, you know, the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing? They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN is scum, and so is MSDNC. They're all, and frankly, the networks aren't much better. It's all fake news, but they should not have done that. Those pilots hit their targets. Those targets were obliterated, and the pilots should be given credit. They're not after the pilots, they're after me. They want to try and demean. Iran will never rebuild its nuclear. From there? Absolutely not. That place is under rock. That place is demolished. The B-2 pilots did their job. They did it better than anybody could even imagine. They hit late in the evening. It was dark with no moon, and they hit that target with every one of those things, and that place is gone. But when I see CNN all night long, they're trying to say, well, maybe it wasn't really as demolished as we thought. It was demolished. You take a look at the pinpricks, and you see that place is gone. And I will say, I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize. I think these guys really, these networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are. You're real losers. You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think CNN is a gutless group of people. And the people that run it, nobody even knows it's been sold so many times. But the people that run it ought to be ashamed. MSDNC, a guy named Brian Roberts, he heads it. He's a disgrace. He's a weak, pathetic disgrace. Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
When was the last time you heard a world leader swear and drop the F word on live TV? We just saw that. Now, here's why the Nobel Peace Prize aspirant isn't very happy. Last night, Iran fired 6 missiles at America's largest airbase in the region, situated in Qatar. The missiles were intercepted. No one was hurt. Nothing was damaged. Now, many people are calling it a staged strike or a fixed match to give Iran a face saver after the American bombing. A little later, President Trump donned his peacemaker cap once again and declared a ceasefire. He went off to sleep, but Iran and Israel have continued to go after each other. As we speak, Israel has attacked Tehran. Question is anyone taking Mr. Trump seriously? Major Gaurav Arya joining us on the broadcast, Editor-in-Chief of the Chanakya Forum. Thank you, Major Arya, for being with us. Hillel Fuld is an Israeli columnist joining us on the broadcast. Thank you very much. I hope I got the pronunciation of your name right. If not, do correct me on air. I'll be happy to be corrected. And Alex Zadan is a Republican. He's a former candidate for the US Senate joining us as well. Alex, thank you very much for your time. I see all three of you are smiling. That's always a good sign. President Trump is not very happy this evening. Alex, my simple question to you is, I'm not going to complicate this. My simple question to you is anyone taking President Trump and his ceasefire seriously? Look, the Iranians yesterday night came out and said, we haven't agreed to a ceasefire. Israel didn't say anything, but they continued to do what they have been doing in the last 12 days. Is Israel even listening to what Mr. Trump is saying, sir?
Seriously is you at this point. Everyone else knows that President Trump says what he means and means what he says. You just saw a mic drop moment from the President of the United States on live TV carried across the world. President Trump has the power to bring both these sides to the table, which is exactly what he did yesterday and what he's going to continue to do. The president obviously has the ability with the assets from the American military in the Gulf region to absolutely decimate Iran with one order. And I think one thing that's often overlooked in the relationship between the U.S. president and the Israeli prime minister is that presidents are very often very close with a prime minister of Israel in public. But behind the scenes, they wield immense power because Israel's military arsenal is made up of American weaponry. With one phone call, President Trump can eliminate Benjamin Netanyahu's ability to wage war. That is a powerful cudgel that the president has in his hand. And if you've seen the reporting in just the last few hours, Israel has turned away most of its planes. They're executing a symbolic strike on one radar station, and then, God willing, the shooting will stop in the Middle East.
Major Gaurav Arya, just help me understand what is a symbolic strike. We heard the President of the United States on camera. I just played out the 4-minute bite because I do think that it is worth everyone's time. He's saying, yes, Israel has sent, their planes and their bombers, but probably it was not intentional. My point is, when you send a fighter jet to bomb a country, it is intentional. There is no two ways about it.
Absolutely. I think, Shreya, first of all, thank you for inviting me on your show. You're absolutely correct. And you see, what has happened is that America took the decision to bomb those three nuclear sort of locations in Israel. It was a job extremely well done. That is one. Second, I think while we're saying that President Trump has announced a ceasefire, on ground, we see that ceasefire not working. Does President Trump have the capability of obliterating Iran with one push of the button? Absolutely. There is no doubting American military might, and nobody is doubting that. The fact of the matter is that the Israelis have been fighting this war since 1948. I'm not talking about Iran. They were great friends till 1979. I'm talking about this entire ecosystem that exists in the Middle East. So to think that this ceasefire will be temporary and war will break out again unless there is a regime change. So there are two things which I'd like to point out here. One is, capability, and the other one is intent. What is Iran's capability, or what is the kind of capability that Iran was trying to achieve? Number one, nuclear weapons. Number two, ballistic missiles married or fused with those nuclear weapons. That is number one. And what is the intent? The intent of Iran always has been that the Jewish state will not exist. Throw the Jews into the sea. Now, unless you have a regime change in Iran, that intent will not change. What you have destroyed today is capability. But without getting rid of Khamenei, without getting rid of that entire vicious and tyrannic ecosystem, it's going to come back all over again, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 15 years, but it will come back. You need a regime change for Israel to survive, and Israel realizes that with or without American weapons, I'm sure American weapons are a great help, and they are the finest weapons in the world. There is no doubt. Nobody makes weapons better than the Americans. But the Israelis will have to fight, as I think it was Benjamin Netanyahu who said, even if we have to fight with our fingernails, we'll fight. Because Israel has no other option.
ठीक है. Hillel, would you want to come in here? You're an Israeli columnist. What do you do in a situation like this? Do you believe what Major Gaurav Arya is saying and predicting, that this ceasefire is only temporary? Israel has been very clear since the beginning that it is regime change. That is the ultimate objective as far as Israel is concerned. But here is America and the American president saying, no, regime change is not something that we are looking at the moment. What do you do in a situation where the president of America is promising that Iran will not, under any circumstances, build any nuclear weapons now, and Iran is saying, no, our nuclear program will go on?
First of all, thank you for having me on your show. I agree with a lot what was said here, but a little perspective is in order. Israel achieved definitive victory in this military operation, perhaps one of the most impressive military operations in history, surely in Israel's history. We obliterated the regime. We got rid of their senior officials, their senior officers. We basically obliterated their ballistic missile infrastructure, and we destroyed, with the help of America, their nuclear program. Anybody who says otherwise is being dishonest. So this war ended in Israel's favor, despite all the propaganda in Iran. They lie to their people. We know this. This announcement, I would say this demand from President Trump, is simply him asking us to remove our knee from the neck of the supreme leader of Iran. We won this war. Thank you to Donald Trump, for President Trump, for his support in this war. But let's not get confused here. This does not change anything. President Trump has been an incredible friend to the state of Israel, all the way back from moving the embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing the Golan Heights, and of course, the latest attack on the Iranian nuclear facilities. So this doesn't change anything. It's a little bit of a frustrating demand, seeing as they broke the ceasefire within minutes, and Israel should have retaliated, because what they did was to test Israel, and we failed that test thanks to the demand of President Trump. It is frustrating, but that doesn't negate everything he's done for the state of Israel, the support he's given us up until just a few days ago. So for that, Israel is grateful.
Okay, so Hillel, essentially what you're saying is what Major Gaurav Arya is saying, that the ceasefire announcement was a frustration for Israel. We thank the Americans, but it's frustrating for us. Perhaps indicating that even you believe this ceasefire is fragile and possibly temporary. Am I correct?
Well, I've spent the majority of the past couple of weeks in the bomb shelter with my children, so I'm happy to see the hostilities end, of course. But not on a personal level, from a strategic geopolitical perspective, it's not a good development, being, as was said here, the regime has not been replaced. That being said, the regime is hanging on by a thread. They've never been weaker. They know that. They have nothing left. And so, again, we have to count our blessings and be grateful for the friendship and support we got. I would have liked to see it end. I would have liked to see the regime fall. But our objectives, Israel's objectives, were clear, and we achieved all of them.
Hillel, I just have a counter question. I have a counter argument here. I want to ask you, okay, you're saying we were frustrated with Trump's announcement of a ceasefire. But, since the Americans have supported us all along, we had no choice but to go with what they are saying. Then why is it that you ignored what Mr. Trump had announced to the entire world rather proudly and send your jets straight into Iran? Why didn't you keep his word?
That was not the case at all. What happened was he announced the ceasefire, and immediately Iran attacked Israel with a ballistic missile, and Israel announced that it will retaliate, and it received support from the Trump administration, something that confused all of us, because just minutes later, Trump went on TV and announced what he announced. So it wasn't that Israel wanted to break the ceasefire. Israel was put to the test by the Iranian regime, who had broken the ceasefire blatantly. And so Israel had to retaliate. That's what happened. Israel was absolutely not interested in breaking the ceasefire. Israel wants peace. Israel has always wanted peace. And that's an important point, because Israel never started any war, including this war. Israel wanted this ceasefire. Iran broke it.
Alex, then did President Trump jump the gun that both parties were probably not completely on board with the ceasefire, and he, in his trademark style and bluster, went ahead and declared it to the world? Because the Iranians came and said, we are shocked, we don't know what the ceasefire is about.
But then they reversed that, and they said that they would be reversing at 4 a.m. local time. I think that President Trump was very clear in his statement that there was a phased ceasefire. And as is common in ceasefires in war, sometimes other nations, one belligerent or the other, decides to get a last lick in, rightly or wrongly, justified or not. That's not uncommon. And as of right now, we're seeing that this ceasefire is holding and it's going to hold. President Trump is committed to this peace. He has the cards in this situation, and he's willing, ready, and able to force both sides back to the table. How do we make this ceasefire into a lasting peace? Let's go back to the negotiating table. Let's get the Iranians back to the negotiating table. Let's include the Israelis in there, because that's where true peace is made, at the negotiating table.
Okay. Major Arya, before I come to you, I want to go to Hillel. Hillel, I ask you this question partly in jest, but our neighbor, our rather troublesome neighbor, Pakistan, has nominated President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Is Israel going to go in there and say, us too, take our nomination as well? We think he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize?
There's no one in this country that doesn't feel gratitude to President Trump. Again, he's been an incredible friend and supporter of Israel. And respectfully, I'd like to point out that while a lot of the things that I agree with Alex about, it's also important to mention that Israel absolutely has the military capabilities to fight its own wars. And I hope it doesn't come to that. But let's not forget that even the jets that were supplied by the United States to Israel were improved by Israeli technology. Israeli technology includes, of course, the Iron Dome and the Arrow and David Sling and many leading aerial defense systems and offensive systems. So Israel has the capability to defend itself. Again, Israel has an ally in the United States, and we hope it stays that way. But if push comes to shove, Israel knows what it needs to do.
Major Gaurav Arya, I asked that question about Donald Trump jumping the gun when it comes to declaring the ceasefire, because it's happened with us, right?
Yes.
He said, I'm the one who's the peacemaker. I'm the one who ensured that two nuclear-armed powers don't go at each other and fire off those nukes. I'm the one who made the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. And, well, India's stand always has been, no, he had nothing to do with it.
No, absolutely. And I think India's stand is absolutely correct. And we don't think that President Trump had anything to do with it, because our own Prime Minister has, very categorically stated it. Mr. Vikram Misri, the Foreign Secretary, went on air and said that this is what the Prime Minister actually communicated on a telephonic conversation to President Donald Trump, saying that no, you had nothing to do with the ceasefire, and B, there was no trade carrot that was dangled. You see, in such wars, trade can have a very limited sort of an impact. And I'll come back to Iran with your permission now. The problem with Iran is more difficult than trade. Tariffs do not solve every problem in the world. They solve most of the problems, but not all the problems. And to say that, trade and tariffs can solve everything, I think that will be an oversimplification. The issue is that, when you say that we can remove the weapons given to the state of Israel, the Jews have been fighting for 3,000 years. It's a civilizational state. And with all due respect to the United States, and I have the greatest of respect for the president and the United States, the Jews were fighting before there was a Europe, before there was a concept of a Europe. They were fighting since then. So to say that, they will fight with what they have. They fought without anybody at their side, and they've been fighting since 1948, and of course for thousands of years before. That is one. Secondly is the problem of Iran is not solved, and that is why I say that this ceasefire is tenuous. Why do I say that? I say that because if you leave the Ayatollah and his regime, they will rebuild. It might take them 10, 15 years. What is, these people have been funding the Hamas, the Hezbollah, the Houthis, a dozen outfits across. That's what the Quds force is for. It funds these terror outfits, and that is an extension of Iran's foreign policy. Okay. That is how Iran, the Arabs are celebrating today. When the Israelis bomb, when the Americans bomb, who are the people who are quietly celebrating? It's the Arabs, because they know that unless this regime falls, unless Khamenei is taken care of and his people are taken care of in a permanent way, there can be no peace. You see, announcing a ceasefire is one thing. It will hold for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And then again, Iran is going to do something and Israel will retaliate.
Major Arya, I quickly want your point of view on what happened last evening. We were all up watching what is happening in the Middle East. In fact, in India as well, the last couple of days, many of us have had sleepless nights. Iran goes right in to Qatar, claims it has bombed the US's largest air base there, right? That happens. There is no damage. It has been intercepted. No one gets killed, etc., etc. So a lot of commentary since last night has been saying, yes, ab to staged tha. It is all staged to give Iran a face saver, to get out of this war and accept the ceasefire. Is that a theory you buy?
Absolutely. This is the truth. Iran has failed miserably in this war, and President Donald Trump actually put it out on Truth Social. The screenshot was later tweeted that, Iran, he says, thank you for informing us in advance. I mean, why would you inform the enemy in advance that you're attacking? President Trump actually thanked Iran for informing everybody in advance. And he said, now enough is enough. Stop this war. I want this war to stop. That is what he put out. Now, when the Israelis, I beg your pardon, when the Americans got Qasem Soleimani, he was heading the Quds force, very, very close to the regime, very close to Khamenei. When they killed him outside the Baghdad airport a few years back, this is exactly what Iran did. They again attacked the US base. But nobody was hurt. Not a scratch. Not a scratch. So you convey in advance. This is a face saver for the people of Iran, and this is a face saver for the Muslim street. You see, the leaders of the Muslim countries think in one direction, and the people that they represent or claim to represent think in another direction. And this is a face saver that, we have hit back the United States of America. Iran does not have the capacity to hit US assets. It does not. Like my friend from the US very rightly said, if one, God forbid, one US serviceman gets killed, all it takes for President Trump is to pick up the phone. And Iran will be in the past tense, sure.
Okay, let's just all hope it's going to be a quiet night in the Middle East and all of us can get some sleep. Thank you very much, Major Gaurav Baria, for joining us. Good to have you on the show. Hillel Full, thank you very much for joining us. And Alex Zadan, thank you very much for being with us on the show. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm slipping into a quick break. There's much more news on the other side. Do stay with us.